All right. Today we are using ultramarine blue, sap green, burnt sienna, raw sienna, and brown madder, or if you don't have that, that would be the alizarin crimson. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off up in the sky, of course, and we're going to take some of the ultramarine blue, which is our warmer blue, very lightly, a touch of the raw sienna, a little bit more blue, not too much. Because I want kind of a grayish sky. And I'm going to take, wherever I put it here, I'm going to spray the sky very lightly off into the left-hand side so that I can get the watercolor flowing. So, I'm going to start off here, and I'm going to go right through the trees that are in the foreground here. I'm going to add just a little bit more ultramarine blue. And I'm going to add a little bit more of a bluish tone off to the right and bring it right down to the tree line above the building here, like so. And then we're going to come down into the trees, and I'm going to very lightly put the trees in the background. So I'm going to take the sap green and the raw sienna, a little bit more raw sienna, and a touch of the burnt sienna, just to add a little bit of grayness to it, and just a little bit more of the ultramarine blue. So lots of times I'll just stick it over here so that I'm not adding too much. And I'm going to start by adding right on top of the building here, not painting into the building, and add a little bit more blue to it. Have it overlap the building a little bit.
I'm going to go see if she opened the email.
And then I'm going to come down to the ground with more green and a little bit more raw sienna. And I'm kind of running right around the building. I'm going to paint the bottom part of the building in because that's going to be a dark next time. And right up into this building here. And I'm going to add a little bit more blue to that. Because the building's dark, I'm not worried about getting it darker. And then I'm going to dry brush this in here. So I'm coming right around the other side. And here's the trees in the background back here. So you want to encompass as much as you can in the first wash and not have to paint around anything. So I added some more raw sienna, like so, and bring it up into here. And I'm going to add a lot more raw sienna right back in here. So everything is kind of running together, which makes a stronger composition. You don't want to divide just yet. You can divide and conquer later. Now, why I painted around the building itself is that I now have time to block in the roof in the back. We can separate later. And then I'm going to come down onto this building, dragging the blue down into there. And then I'm going to take a little bit of the brown and I'm going to add it back in here so that everything is all encompassed within this, with really nothing left untouched. Even though this is very light, that's going to be light. You don't have to worry about things seeping into one another, but if you stop at an edge here and then paint around it and then come back to it, this will still be wet and you'll have a softer edge right here, where this one will retain its edge a little bit better. And then right up and through the building with the green across, a little bit of the raw sienna in here, very light, lots of raw sienna here, and green through the foreground. So it doesn't matter what kind of green it is, as long as it's light. So you guys can get started on this, and I'll be watching. Denise, are you here?
I have my video on.
Okay, good.
I was here.
All right. Donna, you don't have your video on either?
I don't. Um, okay.
Okay, now I see you, Donna.
Thank you.
I just don't see. Don't see Denise.
Still don't. Oh, there we am.
There you are. Good morning.
Good morning.
Dale, did you do the roof of the old house in green too?
This back here is got kind of a very, very, very light bluish green on it. I went back
Okay.
to it after I came back around and over here, so that the edge somewhat dried there.
And what about the workshop house?
I dragged the blue down into the top of the house there, or the garage
Okay.
actually.
Whatever it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
It's his only garage. It's amazing how many buildings these people have up there.
Dale, what did you mix the green with?
The green I mixed with the raw sienna and a little bit of the blue in the background here. Just a tiny bit of the blue. Then as I came over here, I added more blue to it. And then I just traveled right across the background, the top of this shed here. And then I had more of the green and raw sienna in here and almost pure raw sienna over here. So this here is cooler with more blue in it. This is a little bit less cool, but it's lighter and it will fall back. Because there's more things I'm going to have to do to these, of course. But basically everything in here got covered. So nothing was left untouched. Fred, could you hold yours up to the camera for a minute? Okay, good. That's where you want to be. Can't hear you.
I notice you have a, hold on.
Boy, that gets
I
me
notice you have a
awake.
lighter area through here.
I have it will darken up. It's all right that it's light now. But I
Now
have
I can't hear you.
green down in here, and I have the blue up in the building here.
Yeah, I tried to scrub this and I can't get it any lighter.
No, that's fine. You're fine.
Okay. And the roof is okay here?
The roof is fine.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Okay, here's all the paperwork. She did open it. So I haven't heard back from Bill, but I sent her a little note telling her we missed her and that the recording will be out tomorrow. All right.
How are you doing, Diana? Can't quite see it.
All right, wait a minute.
All right.
Now can you see it?
Yes, you're fine. Good.
Okay.
Okay, that's good, Denise. Yeah.
All right.
Yep, you're good.
Thank you.
This is the easy part. Deborah, how did yours come out? All right, yeah, that's exactly where you want to be. Good. We're keeping the first phase very simple. Donna, how are you doing?
Well, this is a bad day for me because I did not do the right drawing. And so I started with you by drawing without a drawing. I mean, painting without a drawing. And so I'm trying to just take what I can from the lesson starting out that way. And I'll show you where I'm at.
Okay. Okay. It's not that bad. What you can do at this point, if you don't have a drawing, while I'm painting and explaining, you can draw in the things right on top of the watercolor, lightly, don't do it too dark, and you then can continue on. So you're still in the okay slot, so as far as I'm concerned. All right, we're going to get started again. And what I'm going to do is there's a couple different things that you can do, or procedures that you could do at this time. You can again go back to the background, carve things out, and then go up into these things here and this, and then back into this building and come out this way, ignoring the pine trees at this point. Or you could put the pine trees in very lightly, and then work down and around. I'm going to choose to come back to the background and carve things out, and this will be handled kind of last up in here. So I'm going to take my smaller brush, and I am going, or my middle brush here, and I'm going to take the raw sienna, the burnt sienna, and I'm going to take the olive green, and I'm going to add just a little bit of the blue to it to tone it down a bit. A little bit more raw sienna.
Did you say olive green?
Yeah, I did. It's sap green, sorry.
Okay.
Slip of my tongue. And I'm going to dry the brush off just a little bit on paper towel. And I want to very lightly, I'm going to add a little bit more blue to that. Very lightly dry brush this in here so that we don't have too much going on back there. I'm going to paint right across the top of the shed there. so that I maintain that line that comes across and up against the main garage here. And I'm going to just dry brush this in so that it remains kind of a softer edge back here. And then I'm going to come into there's a bush or tree out in front of the shed that overlaps that area, and I'm going to dry brush that in off into this so that this will come forward. So I'm very, very lightly touching the paper, not too much. And as I come down here a little bit more, I'm going to make it a little bit more solid, a little bit darker, leaving kind of a serrated edge down at the bottom here to signify grass and so forth, bringing it up and over the shed there a little bit. And then I'm going to take my smallest brush and I'm going to take the madder brown, or brown madder, and I'm going to take the blue and add that to it. So I'm going to mix it right in with the green, as right here, and I'm going to paint the lower part of this shed here, and I'm going to take, and I rinsed out my brush just a little bit in between, and bring it back into the trees there a little bit, and do the lower part of the older building here. And very carefully, so I maintain the shape of that building. And allowing to soften it as it comes down with a little bit of water so that you can see the green rise up into it just a little bit. It will give it a little bit better harmony. And then off just on top of the building here a little bit, I'm going to bring in very lightly some of that color while this is still wet. And I'm going to kind of go along the top of the building just a little bit like that, that this will remain a little bit darker. You get kind of a grayed down green with that brown matter in it so that you can start to see that. So I'm going to come up into this front garage and I'm going to add a lot more of the brown matter to it with the ultramarine blue. And I'm going to come in here right underneath here. Then I'm going to add, I rinse my brush out and I'm adding water to this. And I'm going to come down into the green down here and kind of paint negative shapes a little bit to signify the shrubs kind of shot out in front of the garage from the angle we're looking at. Add a little bit more blue to it. And I'm going to go underneath the eaves on it to make it a little bit darker. Then I'm going to come around the corner where it is darker. And I'm going to paint some fairly dark darks in here, right underneath that fascia board that runs up along the edge of the garage roof, because I want that to stick out a little bit more. And then I'm going to dry brush that in so that you can see the serration or the leaves of that bush. And I'm going to take a little bit of water here with my brush, still having a little bit of that color in it, so you can kind of see it pop up a little bit. Now you can see that this side is darker than this front side here. And then I'm going to go off and add more ultramarine blue to the same combination, and I'm going to go over to the shed that's over here. Painting around the trunks of the trees, mixing up approximately the same combination but with a little bit more of the brown matter in it, like so. And off to the right-hand side, I'm just going to let it wash out a little bit lighter. And I have a little bit of darkness on the other side of the tree trunk. Since we've painted over the tree trunks, I'm painting around them now so that it just sort of shows me where that tree trunk is at. And then I'm going to take a dry brush into the leaves here of the shrubs, like so. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cool this down back here by taking more blue, which will show us that this is going to be a little bit darker. Dry brush this in here and here a little bit. Like so. I'll paint around the trunk again. Over here and here. And that's where I'm going to leave it. So what I did is I painted, starting off with this background with the sap green and a little bit of the raw sienna and a touch of the blue. And I painted across the top of the roof. Then I added a lot more blue to it, making this darker so that this falls back and this comes out a little bit. Then I painted the bottom part with the brown matter and the ultramarine blue. And then I came back in and darkened this up a little bit with the brown matter, just a touch, in with the green. And then I darkened this up with the brown matter ultramarine blue, a little bit of the burnt sienna, and I dry brushed this in here, painted around the pines, and then I came over here with the same combinations I used on the garage, and then darkened this back in here. So I'm going to take this kind of in smaller steps at this point. That's coming along good, Fred. Denise, how are you doing?
Done. Well, let me know if I'm forgetting anything.
Ah, okay. Oh, you're good.
So you worked on the trees and the barns or the houses?
I worked on the buildings, came across through here, and I handled the dry brushing down towards the bottom here.
Okay.
I really didn't do too much. I did darken in this a little bit more back here.
Okay. Okay.
I just wanted to go in smaller steps so that you can remember everything.
Right.
Diana, how are you doing?
Hold on a sec.
Okay.
I have to switch locations. Okay. Can you see it?
No, I just see the sky in it.
All right, wait a minute.
All right.
I don't know. How about
Okay.
now?
All right, that's good.
Okay.
All right, very good.
I made my shed to the right a little bit too big, but
That's
I'll
all
have to
right. Actually, the shed is bigger than what I put it in, so that's fine.
so you mean I'm more accurate? Oh, no.
Yeah, you didn't even know it. This guy has tractors and little portable sawmill in there and everything else, which I'm going to give this a little bit of form here to make it a little bit more interesting in this area later on. Deborah, how's yours coming out?
Okay, not sure about the little building. Seems like, yeah,
This over here,
Yeah.
it's all right. I continued it on right over here a little bit lighter. I'm gonna put a little,
Behind the tree.
yeah, there's a tree right here, and I continued it over just a slight bit over here. And Donna, how are you doing?
I don't have anything to show you right now. Sorry.
Nothing to show?
It's so bad. I'm just trying to
Well,
make up and catch up here.
all right. That's all right. This is the one reason why we decided to do the video to give to you so you can either continue or start it over.
Yeah.
So that's not a problem.
Okay, well, I'll show you. What I have.
But at least you're getting practice in, if nothing else. Remember that. You don't get any better by not practicing. Okay.
I think she's showing you.
I was showing you.
All right. Let's see what you got. All right. It's not that bad. Considering you didn't have a drawing to start with.
Yeah, and my color mixing hasn't been, I'm not moving that fast.
You want to add the brown matter or the alizarin crimson with the ultramarine blue and,
Okay.
and some burnt sienna to get it this dark. And not a lot of water. So what we're going to do is I'm going to continue on, Donna.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to start again, and there's always something that you have to adjust after it dries. And what I'm going to do back here is I'm taking a damp brush, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to soften these edges up against the back building there, because sharp edges will come forward on you, and you don't want that to happen. So to soften that is one of the things I need to do. I also want to soften it over here on that shed so that the eye is not attracted to things that go off to the right hand side. So I am softening a number of things here. So I just take a paper towel and dry off the extra wetness. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to tone the roof back on the back building first. And I'm going to take a little bit of the ultramarine blue and a touch of the raw sienna, which is basically what we did for the sky. And I want to tone that back just a little bit more, not too much, and kind of sketch it in, not covering the whole building, so that will make that fall back quite a bit. And I got to get this one little corner up there. So that makes the front of the other building come out a little bit more, which will be toned in. I'm reversing the value. I'm making this darker, and this is going to be a little bit lighter later on. Okay, now I'm going to mix up again the brown matter with the ultramarine blue and some of the burnt sienna. So I get kind of a darkish, it's grayed down slightly blue. And I'm going to adjust a few areas in here to bring the garage down to its proper level. And the bottom of this will then show that this building is out in front of that building. And I'm going to take the same color combination with a lot of water in it. And I want to tone down that fascia board to start with, so that that will fall into the shadow. Now I'm going to come over to the other building that's off to the right using the ultramarine blue and the brown matter. And I want to give it just a little bit of form in here. And I know what's there, which is not seen in the picture, but we do have a cast shadow going across here. And I'm doing this very casually. I don't want to bring any emphasis to too much of a straight line, but within that area, there are openings in the shed that are not apparent. So knowing your subject well is always a good thing to do. And there are posts in here. This is going to give a little bit of extra form to this area. And I'm going to take the pure raw sienna here, and I'm going to add a little bit of color in here at the same time. Then I'm going to go back and take and tone this down a little bit. And I'm going to dry brush it into this area here just a little bit.
Is that, that mixture there is brown matter and ultramarine?
And a little bit of burnt sienna. So
Burnt
what
sienna,
I've done
okay.
here is I've created the openings to the shed and left the post in between here initially. And I'm going to do one more little area like that right next to here. And I'm doing it very casually. I'm not trying to make
We
it.
lost you, Dale.
You lost me. Great. All right, hang on.
There we go. You're back.
Okay, you're back.
All right. Back to where we were at before I created a sunburst and took everything out. All right. Now, what we're going to address at this point, you can all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm going to address the ground out in front of the building here. So taking the sap green and some of the ultramarine blue and a little bit of the burnt sienna, so we get kind of a grayish green here, and I'm going to create the underneath part of the bushes here very casually. So I'm dry brushing this in here, and I'm going to take my toothbrush with a little bit of the sap green on it, and I'm going to put this in here like this so that we have a transition here that's a little bit softer. And then I'm going to take a lot of the sap green here.
You did it again.
All right.
All right, here we go. All right, what I was doing here is I was putting in the foreground grass, and I'm adding a lot of dry brushing in here so that you can still see the original wash. And I am just taking it across. Over here I'll do a little simpler wash, but out in front I'm going to make it a little bit more interesting. And I'm going to take the raw sienna, mix it in with the green, so there's a lot of raw sienna in here. And I'm going to dry the brush off slightly, and I'm going to come in downward motions out in front of this and add more raw sienna up into the building again, like so. And I'm going to come out in front over here with that same color so we have a little bit more variety. And I'm going to add a little bit more of the blue to this. And I'm going to go in underneath the bushes again to make it darker. I'm going to take the toothbrush and I'm going to add this right up into there so it has a softer look to it, allow it to hang down a little bit. And then I'm going to take the green and the yellow, mix it together, and I'm going to come across here like so. So we're starting to fill this in a little bit more. And then I'm going to come in and put a little bit more vibrant green mixed right in with what I had already. Like so. So they're moving the color around a little bit more. Like that. Then I'm going to come up into the shrub itself up in here, mixing the ultramarine blue with that green I already had. And I'm going to dry the brush off, and I'm going to go off to this side over here, so that this will separate from the background, and then keep it a little bit softer up towards the garage. And I'm going to catch these little beads of stuff there. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the sap green almost straight, and I'm going to spray it a little bit in here, a little bit off over here. And again, I'll have to redo this area a little bit, but not too much, to show the underneath part of the bush. I'm going to soften this in like that. And then the final thing, I'll bring up and soften the edges up into this, just a slight bit. So, just to recap, I went in to this area here, I think. Got to remember where I was at. Came down underneath the bush to give it a little bit of darkness. Various greens out here with the sap green, the raw sienna, a little bit of the ultramarine blue, and then I dry brushed this into here so that this will fall in front of what's in the background there. I'm going to bring this up just a little bit more. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, right underneath here, pull that up just a slight bit to maintain a lighter line. I'll darken this in again on the next one. So right here, I'm leaving some areas that will create a road, which I'll lift out later on.
Dale, that yellowish greenish, I mean, that is,
The sap green and the raw sienna. So now we got some texture going in the foreground. What I just did while you're watching, I lifted out the post here a little bit lighter here and one right over here just a little bit, so it comes out and defines the area just a tad more. But try to keep the foreground fairly loose and not looking like it's evenly covered. Give it some textures.
Dale, it's Diana. Can I show you where I'm at and tell me if I need to
Yes.
soften anything? All right,
Yep, go ahead.
let me turn it around. Okay. Can you see it?
I see just about 2/3 of it. Yeah, okay, there we are. All right, you're fine.
Okay.
You could, that path that's coming out here, you can kind of allow it to be a little bit less defined.
Okay. So soften my edges with color or,
With color. Fred, can I see yours up closer to the camera? Okay, good. You're getting a much better command of the watercolor now, which I'm happy with. How are you doing, Deborah?
I think it's okay. I think I was using the wrong color. I think I was using the, instead of the brown matter, I was using the burnt sienna at one point.
All
So I
right.
don't know, it may look muddy.
No, it doesn't at all. That's not going to hurt it. You can add a little bit of brown matter to your palette and use that here and there. I'm going to be using it
Yeah.
in tree trunks and stuff, so you should be
Okay.
fine. Right now, you look.
And then the brown work looks okay.
Yep, it looks fine. It's a matter of making the dark somewhat colorful, but not too colorful, and you're right there. That's fine.
All right, thanks.
Yep. Denise, how are you doing?
I'm working on the grass.
All right. You could. What I was doing is I was treating it, painting in the direction of the grass going down like this.
Okay,
So I dry brushed a lot of it, and then I added a little bit more water to the pigment and allowed it to blend
slow. Okay,
in. So you're
okay.
fine. Donna, how are you doing? All right. Hey, that's pretty good for not having a drawing at the beginning. I like it.
Thank you. Trying.
Well, the idea is to handle it in simple ways and build it up to more
Yes.
detail. So the block in is somewhat very simple, and then you're honing into different areas on it. So you're fine.
Yeah. Thank you.
We'll start in a minute again. All right, we're going to start again. We're going to go up into the trees. We're going to start with the tree trunks first. And I'm going to take the burnt sienna and a little bit of the ultramarine blue and a touch of the brown matter and a little bit of the raw sienna. So we're getting kind of a grayish brown here, toned down, and add a little bit more ultramarine to it. And this is really just the first pass of this, and I want to make it just a tad more colorful than what's in the photograph. So I'm very carefully working from the middle down in this case. I'm going to make it a little bit darker as it comes down. Put on a few tabs there, but I want to make it, because right now they're pretty much in the shadow area. So this first one I'm making a little bit lighter at the beginning. Bring it down into the shrubs out in front. So I'm taking more ultramarine, some brown matter, and I'm going to take this next one from this point down. It's going to be darker, and I'm going to kind of allow it to filter through the shrub here and allow it to be lost and found so that it's coming or emerging out of that area. And the second one, I'm adding some more ultramarine blue to it, this smaller one, and allowing that to go in and out of the shrubs that are down at the bottom. I'm going to go back and add more burnt sienna to the fourth one here. And I'm going to show a lot more of this. So I'm darkening it in as it comes down into less light here. And keep the bottom of the tree soft. And then the last one, I'm going to make fairly dark back here. I'll add a little bit of color to it as it hits the ground. And again, I'm keeping it soft as it hits the ground. Now, I'm going to take my smaller brush at this point, and I'm going to keep it fairly simple as it goes up. Adding a little bit more brown to it. I'm going to add some of the branches coming off of these. Some darker, some lighter. And I'm going to start mixing some more color up here. Now I don't want to go too far up because I'm going to start adding the green to this. So I'm going to bring this one up and out. Not worried about the branches just yet. And this one here, some of these things will be, parts of it will be missing once I put the pines in, or the pine boughs. So I do it very casually, up and out, not overdoing it. And then I'm going to take the green, the sap green, mix it in right with what I've been mixing here. And I am going to dry brush in the feeling of these boughs, and I'm painting in kind of an upright direction, moving it a little bit here, a little bit there. And I am paying attention to the photograph at this point, a little bit more about where these things fall. Right up over the tree trunk to kind of disguise it a little bit. And I'm going to take my toothbrush and add a little bit of color to it. And I'm going to start putting it in over here a little bit heavier. Going to add a little bit of ultramarine to the combination so we get a little bit darker. And it'll bring some of the color in that's down towards the bottom. So I'm putting in larger passages of this as I move. It's not going to be as heavy as what's in the photograph. It'll be a little bit lighter area than what's in the photograph. And I'll spray it, and then I'll end up manipulating as I move down. Mix up some more blue in with this so we get a little bit darker. A little bit spottier over here. Much more casual off to the right because I don't want too much definition. Connect a few of these things. So that it doesn't get over defined and not too heavy. So I've got a lot of color up in here. I can define it later, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect it with some of the branches. So I'm going to use the ultramarine blue and the burnt sienna, and I'm going to start connecting some of these branches out here. So that makes a little bit more sense. So this is really the first passage of the pine branches. And I'm allowing them to jut out here and there, hold up some of the foliage. allow them to overlap. So I'm looking at basically how this is sort of designed. And this helps close in the rest of the sky here a little bit more. So I'm being very careful on where I'm adding these branches and how much or how little. So that this starts to make a little bit more sense. Now, while I've got this dark on the palette here, I'm going to go in and define a little bit in the background here, not too much. This part of the building's in shadow. Put a couple windows in. And then I'll bring down in some darkness of darker green down towards the bottom here. So mixing in with the same color, I'm going to dry brush in by tapping off the brush on paper towel. I'm going to dry brush in the bottom of these shrubs or whatever you want to call them. And a little bit across the top. So now the painting's coming together a little bit more. I'm going to dry brush in some darkness over here. And that's where I'm going to stop at this point. So I put the trees in with different color browns and blue browns and darker browns with the burnt sienna, the ultramarine blue, and the brown madder in here, and allow them to feed in and out of the foliage here. Then starting to dry brush this in here a little bit more, and then I use the toothbrush with the color over here. I'll define this a little bit more later on. Then I put the branches on. Because right now the photograph is a little bit on the heavy side on the foliage, and I did simplify it quite a bit. I'll be right back. Don't go away. Okay, I'm back.
So Dale, the foliage in the trees, that's going to be the same, some of the same colors, right?
Yes, it is. This is a little bit more defined over here. I will define this, but I left this diffused because I don't want too much attraction going up in the upper right-hand corner. So I used the toothbrush for that.
And the foliage up top was sap green mixed with,
Burnt sienna, a little bit of raw sienna, and some ultramarine blue. Different combinations of it. So I have remnants of it still left here, but you can see all the colors I used around that green too. So I was trying to pull up the colors that are down in here up into here so it's not foreign from the color down here.
Dale, what is the best technique for doing the pines, for doing the green in the pines?
Well, I was painting them in the direction that they were going, so they kind of swoop up and across. And I would dry the brush off on your paper towel a little bit when you've mixed up the color. And I was sweeping up.
Okay.
And then over here, I was sweeping up in different directions. And I was also looking at the pattern of the light between these things so that it has a variety of holes coming through and not all the same. Any other questions at all?
Dale, it's Diana. You want to take a look and tell me
Where you're
if
at?
my trees need more?
Yeah, they could be a little bit fuller right in here, Diana,
Okay.
and kind of watered down just a little bit at this point. You want to have enough random variety within how you're handling the trees that they're not all the same. How are you doing, Denise?
Um,
Um,
Still working on the trees.
okay. Take your time.
Yeah, I'm almost there.
All
I
right.
think.
Fred, that's looking good.
Let me get a little closer so you can take a look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's coming out fine. Okay, good.
Anything more I need to do to the trees?
I would say you can make this a little bit heavier over here. I'm going to darken up what I have, but you can make it a little bit heavier over here, and these are a little bit sparser over here.
So when you say heavier, just more foliage, right?
Yeah, just a little bit more full, because I'm trying to balance off the light areas to dark areas. This will be a little bit more enclosed looking because of the darkness I'm going to put on, but I'm going to leave it a little bit light and airy over here.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Deborah, how are you coming along?
So, okay, the foliage, I think I'm struggling a little bit with.
Well, you're doing fine. Try to enclose some of it a little bit here and there, but not too much. You're almost there.
Okay,
Donna, how are you doing? That's coming out nice. Just work with your foliage on the pine trees now.
Thank you.
I just want to let you know I have a 92-year-old in my Lake Zurich class.
Oh,
And he's
see?
there every week, and he goes golfing twice a week. Nothing stops them. I hope I have that energy when I'm that age.
I do too. Keep it. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to start and work a bunch of little areas, but I took a little bit of the blue and a little bit of raw sienna and some burnt sienna to get this very light, I don't know if you can see it, very light grayish brown, bluish brown. And I'm going to tone in very lightly the roof here just a little bit more. It's a little bit too light. And I'm going to add just a little bit more blue to it. And I want this to be a little bit darker in here so that as it recedes away, it gets a little bit lighter and plays value off of value there. And it was a little bit too light before. So I'm going to take some green and some of the ultramarine blue, and I want to make this down here, this darker part of the tree here, a little bit darker, just a slight bit, and a little bit. So I'm dry brushing this into the pigment that I already have on there. Then I'm going to take a little bit of the burnt sienna, and I'm going to create a trunk to this tree, a little bit here and there, and some branches, not too many, just some minor things. I'm going to put a door on here, and I'm going to denote the garage door opening here, and a little bit darker on the door itself, and then there's actually a 2-car garage there, just to give some added interest. Then I'm going to take the ultramarine blue and the brown matter, and I'm going to detail off just a little bit on the garage here, and I'm going to add a window in up here just as an extra added attraction. And then I'm going to take my medium-sized cat tongue with, going to mix it right up into the same color that I've been mixing, and I am going to darken in again a little bit more along through here. I'm going to water it down quite a bit, that combination, and I'm going to make some very soft passages of color back over here to darken it a little bit. And I'm going to add a little bit of directional color line, if you want to call it,
No.
to the foreground here.
We're like, that should be good, no worries, we'll add it to the notes.
Oh, good.
So I don't even think they'll call you.
And I'm going to take the toothbrush, put the burnt sienna on it, and I'm going to spray it into here just a little bit, just to give this area a little bit more definition. Not too much, but a little bit more. And I'm going to darken in a little bit there. And take a little bit of the ultramarine blue, mix it in here again, and I'm going to darken in a few patches here and there, and it will diffuse within there, because I need to bring out some of that darkness into the foreground. I'm going to darken this area up over here a little bit more, a little bit there. So it's a lot of little things in the foreground. I don't want to overwork the foreground. I want to keep it quite loose. And then I'm going to drag this down into here a little bit on a diagonal. Bring this a little bit closer there. And what I want to do is I want to take my 1-inch brush and pull out all the water out of it, and I want to get a directional path for one of the tire tracks, but it's not going to be a continuous path. It's going to be kind of lost and found. It's going to be very loose. So you can see it move up and then over to the garage just a little bit. And I'll define it just a little bit more down here. Then what I'm going to do is take some of that color, put it in the middle just to define it a little bit more, define this edge a little bit more. But I don't want this to be overly defined because it will be distracting to the rest of the composition. Just enough. You don't want to overemphasize it. So I'm going to take a little bit more green and a little bit of the burnt sienna here and a touch of the ultramarine blue. Get kind of a grayish green here. And I want to emphasize a little bit more dark in here. Not too much. To this side, so that this turns over into shadow more. And I'm going to take a little bit of that color again, and I'm going to add some accents of darks back in here. Then I'm going to go up into the trees. So I'm going to take my smaller round brushes at this point, and I want to get a little bit more definition on the trunks where it needs to be. And again, I'm not clearing off my palette. I'm simply mixing right on top so that that green will automatically gray down some of the color that I have. So I'm going to make these things a little bit darker here and there. Let them fall down to the foliage. This one will come through here, like so. And just defining points. So I'm going to go with a cast shadow on the tree from the foliage here. And as I come down, I'm going to get it a lot darker. So I'm going to use a lot of ultramarine blue and some of the brown matter, because this is falling behind the shed, or out in front of the shed, and it's going to be a lot darker. And it's falling behind the garage there. So I'm darkening that up just a little bit, and I'll go in and define this tree just a little bit more. A couple brush strokes here and there. Then I'm going to come out to the tree that's over here, and I'm going to use some burnt sienna mixed in with the combination I have, and I'm going to darken this in and give it a little bit more definition. Not too much. Now the question is, I need to go up into the boughs of the pine, but first I'm going to lift a little bit of a molding area on the top of the, in the garage here for the window. And I'm going to lift out a little bit of light on these doors here, just to give it a little bit more definition, not too much. And I'm going to take some of the green I have mixed up with the brown, and I'm going to pull it into the surface down here before I go any further. Then I'm going to take the sap green and right into that blue and blue brown that I put on the trees, and I want to balance off a little bit of a dark down in here, kind of a shrub. Then take the toothbrush and top it off a little bit. Then I will go up into the boughs of the pine. So I'm going to take that green again, mix it right in with what I already had, and I'm going to slowly create some darker darks on here. Add a little bit of blue into it so I get a little bit darker. And I am just adding a little bit of that darkness in there so that you can see the underneath part of the boughs being in shadow. This one will be a little bit darker overall because it's behind the tree. The one down below will again be a little bit darker because it's below everything. Less over here, a little bit more there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit more volume to these up in here. And I'm going to do a little bit of connection so that I don't have all these light spaces popping through too much. And allow more room for overlapping. And I'm also going to come back down to the bottom here. I keep on looking around the whole painting at the same time so that I'm balancing off the darks and the lights a little bit more, so I don't see things separating too much. And I want to add a little bit of darkness to this side to make the garage turn off into the shadow. So I want to get this a little bit darker. So that gives me the opportunity to come down into the shrub down below. And I'm not covering the whole thing. I'm being very casual about it. Modifying the window a little bit. I still have some of the original wash showing through. I will not touch any of this back here because that's got to fall back, so it can't be as dark as what's up front here. And I'll add a little bit of darkness to the tree here. And I'm going to create some more dark branches here with the blue and the brown. And occasionally I look at the photograph, because if I look at the photograph, I'm following all those little nonsense things, and I don't want to copy everything that's there because it's not needed. So I dry the brush off to get a finer point on things. We need a branch holding this up. And I'm going to go in and add a few other little things in here with some of the green grayed down. And just a few extra details here and there. You don't want to add too much. I'm going to add a few little branches here, or stems coming up from that shrub here. It'll help define it just a little bit more. And some of the burnt sienna mixed in with that little bit of the green here. And I'm going to take the toothbrush and put it onto the driveway just a little bit. And a little bit more of the blue grayed down. And I am going to push this roof back just a little bit more back here. So that will push this roof out, the front one. And a little bit of a cast shadow coming across through here, just so that that back building stays back. This is too light in here, so I'm going to tone that down. That will fall back. So all these little things you got to look at towards the end. This needs to be toned back a little bit more. add a few accents of dark blue in here, almost straight. And one of the last things, I'm going to add a lighter value tree right in here. And have it come up through here. So it falls behind the pine tree a little bit. It's not in the photograph, but I'll see what it looks like. I'll add a little smaller one here. And then I'm going to add a straight one back over here. The reason why I'm doing 3 of them is that 3 is a little bit better on the eye rather than having just 2. Odd numbers are better. This one's going to be a little bit bigger. Then I'm going to go in and lighten some of this, soften it up a little bit to play the value off the building and the tree. Add a little bit in here on the interior part. It's just a matter of softening, lifting a little bit, and it creates a little bit stronger value. A lot of these little things I'll spend sometimes an hour futzing with little things, standing back, looking at it. I think I'll add one last thing, taking the burnt sienna with the green and a little bit of ultramarine blue. I want to add a small sapling right in here that feeds up through the tree. And maybe one right through here that only comes up a little bit, so that it looks like the trunk of the tree is, or the shrub is coming up a little bit more, just to give it a little bit more of an accent of detail. And I'm going to add a little bit of blue right in here to pull that color from the sky down. So let's see what it looks like without the tape on. And I did this on indigo paper, which has a little bit more texture, the indigo cold press. So I have to be careful in taking the tape off. So you get a better idea of how much color we put on by comparing it to the white. As you can see, it's pulling up some of the paper on this. So it's a very soft paper, but it's really a wonderful paper to work on. But I'm always very careful how I pull this up so I don't pull up part of the painting with it. So that's what we ended up with. So you guys can get started on that, and I'll be right there. Just hang on.
Dale, it's Diana.
Yes.
Do you want to take a look? I've got to go to physical therapy in a little while. So
Okay. Leave me alone.
tell me what. You see it?
Yep. Up in this area right in here, you can make this area a little bit darker, Diana.
Okay.
And let's see it again.
Okay, I'm making notes here. Can you see it?
Bring it off to your right a little bit more. There we go. The roof on the front building here could be a little bit darker in value up on the edge right here.
Okay. So darker roof on the edge. Okay. Anything else?
One more time. Move it off to your right again a little bit. A little bit more so I can see the whole painting. There we go. Yeah, the rest of it looks pretty good.
Okay.
You could define the area out, that bush out in front just a little bit more, but that's about it.
Okay. Bush front. Front. Okay. I'll send it to you when I make the changes.
Okay, I'll be in Nashville, Indiana this weekend, so I'll have intermittent internet.
That's fine.
Okay, but I'll be back Monday.
All right. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Dale, would you mind taking a look?
Nope. Go ahead. Let me see what you got. That came out nice. Your driveway is a little bit too light right in here. That path, you can tone that down just a little bit more so it doesn't stick out. Especially as it recedes, it's going to be a little bit darker so it lays down a little bit more.
Gotcha. I was thinking it was one path and it's really tire tracks, isn't it?
Yeah, the tire tracks that are in front there.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. I've got to go to another class. Thank you so much. It's good to be back, and I'll see you next week.
Okay, you have a good weekend.
Thanks. You too.
How we all doing?
Doing okay, trying to get the ground in a little better.
Okay.
I'm going to show you. Here.
It's getting there.
Yeah.
You've got the texture going on through here, which is good. Your road is a little bit, you're getting it the same all the way up, where it should kind of come together here and here.
Okay, narrow it up there. Okay.
But the rest of it looks really good, Deborah.
Okay, and this building off right over here.
Yeah, I just sort of let it fall off over here.
Okay,
You know, so it's not the script. The only thing you need to do is to tone down your roof on this back building here so it falls back.
tone down meaning make it darker.
Yeah, make it a little bit darker with the ultramarine blue and so forth.
Okay. And what about these trees up here in the top?
These up here are pretty good. You've got them going nicely.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Denise, how are you doing?
Probably overdoing.
No, no, no. Pull it up to the camera a little bit closer, if you could. No, that came out nice.
I don't think there's too much going on, or
No, I don't. I feel that you're fine. You could probably lose a little bit of the driveway up in here a little bit. Just sort of let it trickle off
okay,
and not be so defined.
right.
And Donna, how are you doing?
Well, I kind of lost my drawing that I'm trying to
Well,
figure out.
you can
what I'm
always try it again. It's nice though. It's a little bit different looking than what I have, which doesn't make it wrong. It's just that you have a lot of things going on in the foreground, a little bit too much.
Okay, that's where I'm at right now. So
Right in here, yeah. But the rest of it looks pretty good. Your garage here could be a little bit darker,
right.
but for not having the drawing down right away, I think you did really well.
Oh, thanks. I was trying.
But you got the video as a
Wonderful.
backup. Use the video
Yes.
as a backup so that you know what you missed and what you need to do.
Yeah, I'll check and see how that's working for me now and
Okay.
use that. Thank you so much.
No, I'm good. I'll work on it later. So have a good
All right.
weekend.
But I'm quite happy with you, Deborah. You're working on a bigger sheet of watercolor paper where the others are working on a quarter sheet. So I think you're doing really well.
Thank you. Just trying to push myself.
Well, that's good. That's what you need to do.
All right. All right, thanks.
All right. You have a good weekend.
You too. Bye, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Denise, you want to show me one more time? Oh, Denise left. All right, Donna. I'm going to sign off.
Okay, I'm going to sign off. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.